Hey there, guys. So I want to welcome you to today's live stream as always, once again. So I do want to address a few things before I get into today's topic, as I always do. I do want to mention, I don't think that I mentioned it last time because I know I've made adjustments from last week, of course, but I actually have my website domain up and running. So my website is easily searchable now. So you will see it all over the place because I do want to share it because there's easier access to it because I have a domain name now for it. So bponlinefitness.com is the name of my website, and that's where you will be able to access anything related to my online fitness coaching. All of it is there, and you can access it just by searching it in the search bar in Google or any other platform. So definitely check it out. I'm working to optimize it a little bit more, and I'm trying to make more adjustments to it and make it more user friendly as it goes along. I've optimized it pretty well on mobile devices, so when you go on the website on your phone, it is a little bit easier to navigate, I believe, than it would be if you're on the computer. However, it works both ways. There's a desktop version of it as well as a mobile version, but I'm working to sort of continue to optimize both of them to give you a better user experience. I want to add a little bit of more depth into the website to where you will be able to sort of have an account on there. And I'm working on trying to implement new things into the website. Again, it is sort of at its beginning stages, but I do have a domain name. So if you search bponlinefitness.com, you can reach that. And if you go through the different tabs on there, when you hit the sort of hamburger symbol at the top, and it'll show a list of sort of how my program is structured, as well as how you can access live streams and things of that nature. So have it organized so where you can see all of that information. So, and then another thing too is you'll be able to see how to join the email list as well as how to join the coaching when you go to book a consultation. So there's a lot of different information on there. I don't want to go too far in depth with that today, but I do want to mention, because I don't think I mentioned it last time from what I remembered, that I just recently got my domain name up and running. So definitely check out my website. I'm constantly trying to update it and work on it. So that is up and running if you want to check that out. Now, with all that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into today's topic, which is discussing the major factors to building muscles. So I'm going to go over a bunch of various different things in this presentation live stream, and we're just going to focus primarily on muscle gain, talk a little bit about the various aspects of how you should structure your workouts leading to muscle gain. So the first thing we need to do is understand understand the process of muscle building. So muscle building, also known as muscle hypertrophy, refers to the process of increasing the size and strength of skeletal muscles through resistance training, proper nutrition, and adequate rest and recovery. This physiological process involves the growth and adaptation of muscle fibers in response to a stimulus, typically in the form of resistance or weightlifting exercises. So you'll see skeletal muscles pop up. Basically, that is just a more scientific term for muscles in the body. So when you see skeletal muscles, that's what that means. So again, one thing I want to do with these streams is to really make this digestible. So I am going to go over things as much as I can so that it gets across the idea, because in the sort of fitness realm, there's a lot of terms that are thrown around, and it can be confusing to sort of know certain things. And that's why I really want to sort of simplify that the best way that I can. So, exercise selection is a big factor when it relates to working towards muscle gain and building muscle. So, what you want to do is choose a variety of resistance exercises that target all major muscle groups in the body. Now, this can be done in multiple different ways. So, this includes having compound exercises, which would include squats, deadlifts, bench presses that work multiple muscle groups simultaneously, as well as oscillation exercises, which are targeting specific muscles, and that would include bicep curls and leg extensions, things of that nature. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that your workouts can be split in various different ways. A lot of times for my clients, I do split their workouts based on particular muscle groups. That would be sort of optional that they can do throughout the week instead of doing something that's full body. So usually I would start with either back or biceps or chest or triceps, one of those two. So start mainly in the upper body at the beginning of the week. So let's say back and biceps, chest and triceps. And then as you go through, you want to do your core and obliques, and then moving on, glutes, hamstrings, quads, and then adductors, abductors, and calves. Shoulders could be in there as well. There's a bunch of different ways that you can split workouts, which is there's a there's a ton of different methods to that I could discuss, that I could do just completely a stream over. But I just want to cover the basis when it comes to the sort of exercise splits in themselves. But just know that you need to have a mix of both compound and oscillation exercises. You've probably heard me talk about compound exercises before, and basically that pretty much means that multiple muscles are being worked in that particular exercise. So squats, you've got your quads, hamstrings, and glutes that are being worked in that particular exercise. Whereas in a oscillation exercise, for example, bicep curl, is only targeting that particular muscle. It's only targeting the biceps. Another thing, like if you have like a hamstring curl or anything of that sort, any specific a workout usually mentions it, the name of the, like if it'll say tricep extensions, that likely means that you're only targeting your triceps with that particular exercise. Don't mean any other muscle is being used, but it does mean that the target muscle that you're working is the triceps. So just keep that in mind. A compound is multiple muscle groups working simultaneously, while oscillation is only targeting one specific muscle. So, workout intensity. And this is going to go sort of a little bit into what I've mentioned previously is progressive overload. So, workout intensity. So, what is that? Intensity determines how many muscle fibers are activated during the exercise. So, the greater the intensity, the more muscle fibers are recruited. Muscle fibers are the individual cells within a muscle, and they contract to produce that force. To promote muscle growth, it's essential to engage as many muscle fibers as possible, including both top 1 and top 2 muscle fibers. So there's multiple different fibers that involve, workout intensity, and that's something that you need to keep in mind. So when it comes to sets, and another thing too, going back to the muscle fibers, certain sort of actions activate those muscles. So I do want to sort of clear that up a little bit, that fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers work in different ways depending on what workout is targeted. Now, getting into that, it can be hard to sort of understand, but just know simply that certain muscles are going to be targeted, like a top 1 or top 2 muscle, going to be targeted in specific workouts. So certain muscles are involved in that particular movement, if that makes sense. I know that's sort of a lengthy topic that I could go over, but just know that there's 2 types of muscle fibers that are likely being used and in each exercise. So each of these muscles play a key role into, what you're targeting. So like I just mentioned, with targeting muscles, you've got that mix of compound and oscillation exercises. So specific muscles, specific types of muscles are going to be used. Those specific types of muscle fibers will be used when performing those actions. So that's a little bit more of the scientific side of things rather than focusing on, the basis of, focusing on muscle building and, getting into a routine and, the structure of a workout rather than the integral aspects of the anatomy of the body, and muscles. So that's another topic I would talk about later on, but just know that there's two types of muscles that are, or muscle fibers that are being used. So sets determine the total workload or volume of an exercise session. Volume in the context is a combination of the number of sets and the number of reps per set. So, for example, if you perform 3 sets of 10 reps of squats with a certain weight, the total volume for squats in that workout is 30 reps. So that's pretty much self explanatory. Sets are pretty much how many reps you're doing in that particular amount of sets. So sets is just one set of a repetition. So if you're performing 10 reps, but in those sets, then you're getting 30 reps in for that particular workout. That's the volume that you're getting overall. So just know that sets are basically a group of repetitions. Repetitions are how many times you are performing the action in the workout, and then your volume is overall how much you're doing in that workout. So you're getting 30 reps as far as the volume for that workout. Now, I sort of mentioned before, I think it was a couple weeks ago in another stream, discussing about the difference between reps when it relates to, different things that you're targeting. So if you have a performance based goal, or if you have a hypertrophy based goal, or if you have something more focused on strength, then your rep range is going to change slightly depending on that goal. So, like we're mentioning here, talking about reps, different rep ranges are associated with specific training goals, like I just mentioned. So, for muscle gain, hypertrophy, the typical recommended rep range is around 6 to 12 repetitions per set. This is just the typical rep range, focusing specifically on the hypertrophy side. Now, there's a smaller rep range is going to be more focused on strength, but however, for like a strength goal, you do want to have a heavier weight because you want to sort of compensate for the lower rep range. And then when you're going into performance, you're likely going to have a higher rep range versus hypertrophy. So this range is often considered optimal for maximizing muscle size, so that 6 to 12 repetitions per set. So it allows for sufficient time under tension to stimulate the muscle growth while also allowing you to use a challenging weight. Another thing to keep in mind when you're performing reps, and I do try to mention this over and over again, that you do need to perform your reps in a slow and controlled manner when you're performing them. And the reason being is the more time you have under tension, the more that is stimulating that muscle growth. So keep that in mind. So moving on from, talking a little bit about the workout side of things, what we're going to focus on a little more towards the end here is more of the nutrition side, as well as talking a little bit about recovery too. But for the nutrition side, it's basically opposite of when you focus on weight loss. So I believe it was last week I focused on talking about weight loss, but muscle gain is somewhat different in many aspects. Whereas when I talked about weight loss, in a weight loss particular goal, you want to focus on being in a calorie deficit, which is basically consuming less calories versus being in a calorie surplus, which is consuming more calories than your body needs, or more that is needed, I should say. So just know that with muscle gain, your main goal in regards to nutrition is going to be being in a caloric surplus or a calorie surplus. So, calorie surplus or caloric surplus is a nutritional concept that relates to muscle gain. It occurs when you consume more calories than your body needs to maintain its current weight and energy expenditure. So, you need to basically consume more than your current weight and more to be able to sort of help with the growth of muscle. So, protein synthesis is another aspect of it, as well as calorie intake. So, you want to have adequate calorie intake along with an emphasis on protein rich foods that provide the necessary nutrients for muscle protein synthesis. Muscle protein synthesis is basically the process of, protein helping to, create and build muscle. That's why you do need protein in your diet, because protein is it easily can be taken out of the body. So that's why you have to have a high amount of protein because of the digestion of it. And so the muscle protein synthesis helps to sort of with the muscle gain process, it helps the body to, synthesize that muscle. So protein synthesis is the biological process by which your body builds and repairs muscle tissue. So consuming extra calories, especially from protein sources, supports this process, helping your muscles grow and recover more effectively. That's another thing too, is that protein is going to help with, that recovery process of the muscle as well. So keep that in mind. So managing caloric surplus. So while a caloric surplus is necessary for muscle gain, it's important to keep it controlled. So consuming too many excess calories can lead to excessive fat gain. So a moderate surplus, typically around 250 to 500 calories above your maintenance level. And let me explain what maintenance level is before I go any further. So maintenance level is basically what your body, the calories that you're maintaining at rest is basically what that maintenance level means. So you need to be in a moderate surplus above that maintenance level. So for example, let's say for example your normally calorie intake would be, let's say 1,500. So that would be mainly sort of your basic surplus of calories. So you just want to go a little bit higher than what you would normally take, if that makes sense. So that's above your maintenance level. So, of course, two, you don't want to have any sort of junk calories or calories like that are not contributing specifically to your goal. You need to have healthy calories in there. You don't need to just eat anything just to get up above that maintenance level. So you want to consume around 250 to 500 calories above that maintenance level, and it's only focusing on healthier based foods. You don't want to go crazy and just to reach that calorie level by eating just anything. So again, you have to sort of maintain it in a middle ground. You don't want to consume in excess. You want to sort of be in a moderate surplus where you're eating a little bit more. So that's what's going to help with balancing the muscle gain. So ensure that your surplus includes an adequate intake of protein to support that muscle growth, along with carbohydrates for energy and fats for overall health. So another thing is macros, which I've talked about previously. You want to be aware of your carbohydrates, your fats, as well as your proteins. You want to have them sort of managed. You want to get a good intake between those and balance between each one of those nutrients. So, monitoring and adjustments. So, muscle gain isn't solely about calories, it also depends on your training. So, like I mentioned before, progressive overload, lifting heavier weights, or increasing the intensity of your workouts. That's a gradual progression that you need to do over time. So, it's essential to make the most of a caloric surplus by mixing those two. So being in that calorie surplus as well as in your workouts, going through progressive overload is going to be extremely beneficial. So that's something that you have to be mindful of. It's not specifically just about your reps and sets. You do need to be mindful of your intensity that you're performing throughout your workouts. Lifting heavier weights. Intensity could also be, you know, basically you could do it as if you're doing more sets. So intensity can work in different ways. Progressive overload can work in multiple ways, not necessarily just focusing on lifting heavier weight. You can increase intensity by maybe raising your sets. And another thing too, when you're focusing on muscle gain, you do sort of still want to be, you don't want to increase your reps too much. You still want to be in that sort of mid range where you're at that 6 to 12 when you're focusing on hypertrophy. So you don't want to increase your reps, but you could increase your sets, and that would still be beneficial. There's various ways that you can do progressive overload, but another thing you need to keep in mind with progressive overload is it's not something that you change day to day. It's something that is changed over time. So, for example, you just need to, once you have gotten adjusted to a particular weight, so say, for example, you've been lifting, let's say 40 pounds, and you've been lifting it consistently. You focus primarily on those dumbbells, say, when I say 40, either 40, any kind of sort of weight range. So you've been lifting those 40-pound dumbbells for at least a couple weeks, and you've noticed that they're sort of lighter and that they don't feel as heavy as they used to when you started, you know, working with those dumbbells. So then that's your signal that you need to sort of gradually increase. In progressive overload, you don't have to go massively like to a huge weight. You can do it in a gradual increment process. So for 40 pounds, you can maybe go up to 45. And then once you get comfortable with 45, move to 50, 55. You can do it in increments. The same can be said for when you're doing a barbell. You can add, a lot of times, if you go to the gym, they have the smaller 2.5-pound weights or the 5-pound weights. Those are great for progressive overload. You don't have to go full fledged into like a 10 or a 20. You can gradually increase and adjust that way instead of going a massive leap ahead. That's what progressive overload is. And I didn't want to try to really mention that because it's not something that you change every single day when you work out. It's not like that. It's a progression. It's something that you do over time. When you adjust to a certain weight and you're not getting challenged enough, then that's your signal that you need to move on to a heavier weight, if that makes sense. So going back again, to the nutrition side, what this means is that the caloric surplus along with progressive overload in your training is going to be extremely beneficial getting to that muscle gain goal. So you want to regularly monitor your progress and adjust your calorie intake as needed. If you're gaining too much fat, consider reducing your surplus slightly. If you're not gaining muscle, you may need to increase your surplus or reassess your training program. So there's different aspects. Monitoring it and seeing the differences and changes is something that you need to keep in mind, is something that is important so that you can see over time what you need to address. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. One thing that I didn't mention earlier that I didn't add a slide for it, but I mentioned a little bit about rest and recovery. And I do want to touch on that even though I don't have a slide for it before we end this, because rest and recovery is just as essential. And I don't know why I didn't add a slide to it. But I think I was primarily just focusing on the exercise and the nutrition, but rest and recovery is important. And I know it's sometimes a side thought a lot of the times, but rest and recovery is essential as well. And that goes the same way with weight loss. I discussed it a little bit with weight loss too, but rest and recovery is essential because it's going to help in aiding with that muscle gain process as well, because your body whenever you exercise and you work out, your body is, you know, basically breaking down. You're tearing muscle tissue. You're having micro tears in the muscle tissue, and the body needs time to repair. And that's how you grow, how your muscles grow bigger, because it's repairing that. That's like, almost like a healing process, basically, in the body, because you're putting a lot of tension on your muscles when you go through a workout. Then your body, once that workout's done, your body's going through the process of repairing it. So that's why that protein is mentioned multiple times, because protein helps with the synthesis of muscles. So that's why you have to increase your protein intake to help with that muscle repair process. So just keep in mind that that's what the body is doing whenever you're outside of your structured plan. And a key aspect to that recovery is also sleep. So you want to have proper sleep. The ideal range is 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. That's really ideal. And I know sleep is not easy. It's a very difficult thing, I know, for a lot of people to sort of manage it properly, but it is something that will hinder your progress if you do not get an efficient amount of sleep. Because when you're not getting enough sleep and you're not getting enough rest, you're going to raise your cortisol levels, which leads to gaining fat. So it's going to hinder your progress if you don't make sleep, rest a priority. Now, one thing to keep in mind, sort of ending this out here, is that on your rest days, you do still need to be active. You just need to be lightly active. You don't need to be in a structured workout on your rest days. You need to be active, such as walking, doing low impact things in your daily life that are going to help, with getting your steps in. So just keep in mind that, you know, make rest days a priority, get enough sleep, and just always make that as much a priority as your nutrition, as well as the workouts themselves. Because once you have a balance of these, then it becomes so easy and results will start happening in a more efficient manner. Whereas if you lack in certain areas, results will take a little bit longer to surface, basically. So I just wanted to mention that, even though I didn't have a slide, that the rest and recovery process is just as important. But keep all of this in mind, that there's so many different factors when it comes to muscle building. And once you have a balance between each of these aspects, then you will start to see those results. And consistently over time, you will notice that change. So thank you guys for watching. I want to mention again that I do have my website up and running. You can check it out. I've got the link or the address here to check it out, and I also have it posted in different places. But definitely check that out. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I will have another live stream coming up next week. In this live stream, I'm going to be talking a little bit about hydration, because I've not discussed it in a while, and it's something that I do want to go through a little bit more into detail, because I think it's been a few months since I've actually discussed that topic. So I do want to go back into that and sort of reiterate the importance of hydration and water intake. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you found this helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you have any feedback, just let me know as well. But with all that being said, guys, I will see you guys next Wednesday in the next midweek live stream. So thank you, guys.